Greetings, sports fans! Get set for a furious fandango of football. This is Sunny Day, along with the only player in the BFL to sack himself twice, Chuck Downfield.
Thanks, Chuck.
Hang on to your helmets, sports fans, because we've got a heck of a game heading your way. Welcome to a sunny tropical gardens. The Tennessee Titans will go up against the Detroit Lions.
Did I ever tell you about the time I helped our star quarterback rush for the game-winning TD against the Rough Riders? You see, I got my fingers stuck in his shoelaces right before the play started, and he had to run towards the end zone, dragging me along behind, and we won the game. I didn't think they were going to be able to catch that kid.
First and 20, 23-yard line. Back to throw.
Man.
He's going to run.
Hey, how about that?
Brings up a second down. Second down and 38-yard line. Jacinda Smith.
That kid couldn't catch a cold.
Third down. Third and 30. Long drop. Slings it.
When you have a defender beat that bad, you'd like to make a big play.
It will be fourth down. Fourth and 38-yard line. Bootleg.
They're really lining him up, Sonny.
Enough for the first. First and 20. Drops back. They send it air.
Maybe that kid ought to pick another sport.
Second down. Second down and long. 45 yards. Throws it to the flat.
I think they were passing to you, Sonny.
It'll be third down. Third down and long. 45 yards. Rifles a pass. Vicky Cap.
Great job by the offense on that play.
It will be fourth down. Fourth down and 34-yard line. Option play.
The offense is running on all cylinders.
Another first down. First and 20, 32-yard line.
Now that's what I call hang time. That kid leapfrogged 20 feet down. He really took the bait on that one.
Not gonna happen again.
Hi. They're going to throw. From the 35, Reese Worthington. Here's the kick. One run off outbound.
Didn't you see it?
Hear a noise?
Annie Frazier about to kick off.
Good morning, Starshine.
Attention football fans, tickets on sale
Booms
now
won.
for next week's Monster Blimp races.
First down and 20.
Good.
Looking for the open receiver. Jacinda Smith guns it.
What the heck were they thinking?
Brings up a second down. Second down and a ways to go. 20-yard line. That touched the line.
That was bad.
Maybe we'll win, but I doubt it.
Reese Worthington will be doing the kicking.
Muestre lo que tenemos.
Gets it off.
That kid puts the special in special teams.
First down and 20. 30-yard line. Brian Urlacher passes it. The first quarter comes to a close. First and 20, 34-yard line. They go to the running back again.
Slam, bash, pow. That's what I'm talking about.
It'll be second down. Second down and 37-yard line. Hands it off. going to the air. It is
Good work by the offensive line. They gave the quarterback plenty of time to find a receiver.
That is a first down. First down and 20, 32-yard line. Jacinda Smith fades back to pass.
A great tackle is the most beautiful thing in the world, Sonny.
Second down. Second down and long, 47-yard line. Picked up by the Detroit Lions.
Those kids
yeah.
on defense just
Throw
scream,
that play.
Sonny.
What
Real
is
mean.
this?
You guys look ready to me. Let's go. Bang!
Throw. Throws it to the flat. Intercepted. Annie
It's not
Frazier
whether you win or
about to
lose.
kick off.
It's the fact that you did your best.
Kicks it.
I didn't think they were going to be able to catch that kid.
First and 20. They will keep it on the ground.
Blocking can be the difference between winning a game or losing your marbles.
Brings up a second down. Second down and Amir Khan on the get.
Somebody get that kid some aspirin.
Brings up third down. Third and they will keep it on the ground.
I tells you, that's some good football there.
First down. First and 20, 48-yard line. Going to the air.
When you have a defender beat that bad, you'd like to make a big play.
It'll be second down. Second down and a ways to go. 48. Jacinda Smith slings.
That's a classic case of taking your eyes off the ball.
Third down here for the Tennessee Titans. Third and long, 48-yard line. Passes it.
If they keep passing like that, somebody's going to get hurt.
It will be fourth down. Fourth and forever. 48-yard. Going to the Vicky Kawaguchi. Got it. The Detroit Lions.
When I played, the fumble was my specialty.
First
Get
and
set.
20. 6-yard line.
14. 15. Hut.
Give up to Pete. It's halftime.
These guys are looking good so far, but I think they'll play even better in the second half. One of the most important things in football is yardage. I love yards. No fancy schmancy metric system for me. No siree.
All right.
Reese Worthington will be starting it off.
Right.
Some magic.
Back for the kick.
That kid puts the special in special teams.
First down and 20, 29-yard line.
Hut.
Drops back to pass. They go to the air. And he
This offense is an unstoppable force of unstoppableness.
short by a yard.
Gonna get
Second
down.
and less than 1, 49-yard line. Bootleg.
If I'd had that kind of protection when I was playing, I wouldn't have had all those head injuries.
Enough for the first. First
Set.
down and 20. Gives it to Pete Wheeler.
Good job.
Say is
You guys
great
are
at
right.
Yeah.
something. Wow, wow.
Set. Hut.
Brian Urlacher fades back going to the air. It's picked off. Annie Frazier about to kick off.
Do we go this way or that way?
It is up. They run off the field out of bounds. First and 20. Fades back to pass. Forced out of bounds.
Maybe we'll
Oh
win,
dear.
but I doubt it.
Reese Worthington is going to be kicking off.
Let's spin this vinyl, all right?
The kick. Goes out of bounds.
Kids is all right.
Okay, we gotta crank it up, guys.
From the 35, Annie Frazier.
Go team.
It is up.
Things could only get better for that kid, because they sure can't get any worse.
First and 28. They're going to throw. Jacinda Smith guns it. Lisa Crockett with the interception. First
Get
and
set.
20, 27-yard line.
What?
It will be Pete Wheeler. Pushed out of bounds.
That is not gonna happen again.
Annie Frazier will be doing the kicking.
Gotta play.
Vamos a ganar.
Back for the kick.
I didn't think they were going to be able to catch that kid.
First down and 20. Kawaguchi on the give.
Good blocking wins games, Sonny.
That is a first down. First and 20. 27. Looking for the open receiver. They go to the air. Picked off. First down and 20 to a long drop. Ushered out of
That
bounds.
is not going to happen again.
Annie Frazier about to kick off.
equal to the
love you make, you know. Booms one.
Jeez.
I've seen better returns on tax day, and I don't even have a job.
First and 20. They're going to throw. Option play.
That hole was big enough for a choo-choo train. All aboard!
They came up short. Second down. Gives it to Vicky Kawaguchi.
Did you see that block? Holy Toledo!
First down. First down and 20, 45 yards. Looking for the open receiver. Throws it to the flat.
Maybe that kid ought to pick another sport.
Brings up a second down. Second and long, 45-yard line. They send it
That
airman.
kid couldn't catch a cold.
Third down here for the Tennessee Titans. Third and long. Sit on the ground.
If I'd had that kind of protection when I was playing, I wouldn't have had all those head injuries.
It will be fourth down. Fourth down and third. Move up to Jacinda Smith.
Couldn't have done it better myself.
Enough for the first. First down and 20, 20-yard line.
What a jump! That kid must have leaped from... If I've said it once, I've said it 100 times. You gotta be able to tackle to play defense.
Listo.
Pablo Sanchez fake guns it. Reese Worthington is going to be kicking off. Kicks it. They're going to let this one bounce. First down and 20, 40-yard line. Hands it off.
That defense was all over them like chicken pox.
That brings up second down. Second
guys,
down and a ways to go. 30-yard line. Fired into the flat. And he...
This is one pumped up offense, Sonny.
Third down. Third down and 41-yard line. Brian Urlacher guns it. Annie Frazier pulls it in.
Good job.
That was
So beautiful. I could cry.
Gonna get down. Hut.
Hands off to Pete Wheeler. Well, fans, it looks like we're in for some more football. A lot of points scored by both teams, and we're not done yet as we head to overtime.
4 quarters were not enough to contain these two offensive juggernauts. Here's the official BFL rules for sudden death. Rule number 1, first team to score wins. Rule number 2, well, there is no rule.
It looks like Reese Worthington. It is up. Another game is too close. Well, I'm done.
Not
How
gonna
about
happen
you?
again.
See you next time. Shut downfield. I'm Sunny Day. So long.
Oh, no.
Wow.